today. I'm just going to take you over a quick agenda of what we're going to be talking about and what the big focus for today is. Now, there's a lot that goes into building a project, from the investment side of things down to what happens after receiving that investment, and then all of the things that have to go on with macro market trends and deciding what investments make sense and which ones don't necessarily make sense. Now, Spartan and IOSG Ventures here are both invested into Gomble Games and have been supporting the team from the get-go. And so that's where a big bulk of the conversation for today will head. Before we get into that discussion, let's start with quick introductions. And Chris, normally you get to start, but this time let's give the guest a little bit of appreciation and let them start. So we'll start quickly with Joey from IOSG Ventures. Joey, do you want to quickly introduce yourself and your role?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Joey. I've been at IOSG Ventures for around 2 years. In the beginning, I was mostly focused more on the infra side, doing research, specifically in the MEV and ZK space. I think at a certain point, I got a lot more conviction in the consumer side of things, just because I wanted to kind of explore what more there is with blockchain technology and how it can appeal to the direct end user. So for around a year and a half, I've been focusing more on consumer. Now I lead consumer investments here at IOSG.
Amazing. Okay, makes sense why you guys have connected with Gomble Games and invested if you guys are very focused on consumer side of things now as well. And just quickly, Lionel, do you want to quickly introduce yourself as well? And absolutely love your little Pudgy.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, glad to meet everyone. This is Lionel here. I've been on the investment team in Spartan for around 3 years now. So in Spartan, we actually have 2 venture funds. One of the funds being a consumer-focused fund. So hugely believe in the prospects of like gaming and consumer applications driving the next wave of users to the Web3 space. So that's for and in Spartan in general, right now we have like 3 business arms. So the investment team that I'm on, we also have an advisory team that provides investment banking services for crypto companies. And lastly, we have a Web3 venture studio.
Amazing. Thank you for that introduction, Lionel. I see Spartan's name absolutely everywhere. So you guys are doing something right. And now we'll wrap up the introductions with Chris. Chris, you always introduce yourself on these spaces, but just for any new individuals coming today, do you want to just take the stage?
Yeah, thank you so much. And then thank you so much being here, Lionel and Joy. It's like full of great people here today. So hi, I'm Chris. We're so excited for today's AMA because it's our first time to have this distinguished guest to discuss about the details of investment, the details, and then their idea from investors' view. So I'm so excited.
Absolutely. So now we're going to get into a bulk of the conversation, but just quickly before we do that, everyone smash your like buttons, share it to your friends, your group chats, all of your Gomble squad. Let them know that it's going to be a pretty interesting discussion, a discussion that most people don't get to see because most of these discussions happen behind closed doors. And you'll get an insight into how VCs think when they're making a decision on when, why, or how they're going to invest and support different teams. So we'll kickstart this conversation off with Lionel. And Lionel, I want to ask you a question that's very investor focused. What made Gomble an early conviction bet for you? Was it team, traction, timing? What really influenced your decision when you guys decided to invest in Gomble?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so the investment in Gomble, we actually did 2 rounds in Gomble, right? Which shows our conviction in the team. So largely it's really the team and their backings, right? So Gomble coming from 111%, they really have nailed the process of iterating on games and testing games. And I think in this genre of casual games, the internal processes in which the ideation phase, the speed of ideation, the speed of testing, and knowing what games will do well and focusing on marketing those games. I think that whole process, the Gomble team has especially nailed down. And prior to our investment, we actually also had the chance to try out some of the games back then. And I don't know whether any of y'all have tried the Rumby Arena. We tried out those games. And what stood out for us is like the polishedness of the games, right? Like it's easy to create a casual game, but it's not easy to create a optimized as well as polished casual game, right? With your art and the art styles and everything just resonated with us. Yeah, so I think it was a combination of this.
Amazing, amazing. And it's always good having founders that have come from, big companies. I know that 111% reputation in Korea is quite well known. Even in my last experience going to Korea and speaking to a couple of the gaming gurus from there, a lot of them had known about Gomble games already. And clearly that's translated into your conviction in the team as well. And obviously we've spent a bit of time with the Gomble games team as well, and we can see this experience really translate into huge Web3 metrics. I remember their egg drop game. I think they have 3 or 4 million monthly active users and ranked 1 on DApp Radar, which was absolute feat. So congratulations to Chris and the team there. But let's move on to the next question. So, and Joey, just to frame it, this one's for you. Gomble is taking a multi-game ecosystem-led approach, and Lionel just mentioned a little bit about that. Now, from IOSG's ventures lens, how do you underwrite that kind of vision?
Yeah, so from an investor's perspective, I think we underwrite these kind of ecosystem-led plays like Gomble by zooming out from individual game metrics, and as Lionel said, we're evaluating kind of this like platform leverage and the compounding network effects that you guys can have here. So essentially, when you're betting, rather than betting on like a single title, we're backing a distribution and a retention engine that can spin up into a lot of different casual games. And we know that casual games is something that has done extremely well in the past. Look at stuff like Facebook games or the App Store. I feel like these are also great examples of like distribution channels. But I think the real star here is like your ability to kind of cross-pollinate users. Like if you're able to have a certain IP that's done very, very well, like there's like that implicit trust that you get from users, and you layer like a shared tokenized incentives and social infrastructure across them, which is really powerful in my opinion. I think a few key things that gave us conviction, like as Lionel said, the 111% track record with mobile casual hits. Like you guys really got the distribution and the marketing loop down. I think another one is this early traction that we see from you guys, and your ability to kind of bootstrap the Gomble network with what you guys did previously. I think is especially powerful here. And the flywheel just generally behind like Gomble Squad, Gomble Builders, and the token. It's not just like a collection of games, but it's more like a layered user acquisition and engagement engine, which I personally found a lot of conviction in.
Great response, Joey. I'm actually going to double down on your response here and ask you another question to follow up on that. You talked about user acquisition. You talked about this funnel of how 111% and Gomble have been able to bring huge numbers of users in. But when evaluating gaming projects in today's market, what are some of the other signals that actually matter beyond just daily active users, Discord size and follower metrics?
Yeah, I think daily active users in crypto is it's kind of weird right now, just because you don't know what metric that you can use. You can maybe look at like wallet activity, etc. But I think a lot of this could also be kind of fudged. I think a really important metric that a lot of people tend to oversee is like retention curves, not just like these vanity metrics. So something like D1, D7, D30 retention across different cohorts kind of tells you if the game is sticky, like kind of tells you if people actually enjoy playing them. Another thing that you can kind of look at is differentiating between organic versus incentivized growth. If the game stops growing when you pause these like token incentives, I think it's not a huge product market fit. I think at that point maybe that the token is the product and the game would be marketing, right? And another one I think that we can kind of look at maybe is economic participation. You can really tell a lot about who's actually looking and what like the market that you guys are targeting is just by just by checking who's spending or earning in the game and exactly why they're doing it. Differentiating between if it's speculation or status or real gameplay, I think can yield like really, really great insights.
Amazing response. And Chris, I want to just quickly hand it over to you as well. I don't know if you have some of these stats right in front of you about the retention curves, what it looked like at day 1, day 7, day 30, and whatnot, as well as maybe some in-game metrics when it came to spending. But if you do have that at the top of your head, I'm sure a lot of the audience coming in right now would love to hear a bit more about some of those metrics that Gomble Games has been able to achieve over the past couple of years.
Awesome, like very good topic. I think in this Web3 industry, especially in the gaming Web3, DAU and the main data, total user base, it's kind of not really talking about the power of real strengths of that games. It's like stickiness or retention really tells more. But like these days, like many project in this scene more focusing on the total user and the DAU. And then the why we're thinking this retention and stickiness is very important is like sustainability. It comes from users sustainable visit. So the regular visit. So every time we start to develop any new game, like the rule of the game should be very sometimes very creative, but sometimes very irregular one. But even though we started from very regular idea, but it's there is a lot of like successful game core rule in the scene in the Web2 market, gaming market as well. But it's already there's evidence that if we have a strong those types of game rule has a strong retention. But if we just follow that thing without any new creative way, but then we cannot hit that high retention rate. So the key thing is just we can benchmark some of the successful one, but in addition to that, we add some unique part on that, thinking about why people keep visiting this game again and again. It can be just like game level and game difficulty level adjustment, or sometimes it can be just like a, daily and then daily accumulated reward, something like that. There's a lot of some key recipes we can use in designing the games. So the egg drop is just one of them. And then also there are a lot of games we already proved in the Web2 scene. So we're gonna migrate some of those games into Web3 this year. It's already on the pipeline. So we'll show you. And then in egg drop, I cannot reveal all the data, but like sometimes the retention rate for the D1 was around 60%. And then the D7 was around like 30%, so which is like one of the top best metric in the Web2 when we think about compare with other successful Web2 games. So now we're thinking that in Web3 with some feedback or some reward system, definitely we can make already a fun game to be more fun, more addictive. So we're gonna test a lot again.
Love it. That was an amazing response, Chris. And I want to make sure that Lionel's getting a bunch of attention as well. We've just quick fired 2 questions at Joey, and let's do the same with Lionel. So, Lionel, you recently just talked about what your conviction bet in Gomble Games was, and a lot of that came down to team traction, as well as the team's experience. Now, I know that Spartan invest in a huge amount of projects. I think Spartan's name is all over the Web3 space. You're really propping up the entire Web3 space with a lot of the investments that you guys are doing. And so one of the questions I want to ask you, and it's going to be 2 questions. First one is, when you look at the Web3 gaming landscape, what are most teams getting wrong that Gomble might be getting right? And second question to follow up on that one is there a playbook that you've seen succeed in Web3 gaming, and is Gomble possibly following this or possibly rewriting it?
Yeah, thanks for those questions, Vin. So in terms of like what Gomble is getting right, I would say it's really knowing who their users are and who the valuable users are as well as knowing how to target these users, right? So as what I think the whole discussion has revolved around, like, was a lot about like testing, right? Testing retention metrics, understanding like at which point do people have a higher tendency to drop off, and then including more content at various points. So I think the team is very good at doing that, in analyzing all these statistics and making the right adjustments. So I will say that is one of the key things. Another key thing is, yeah, it's really going to be about the tokenomics, right? So in relation to tokenomics, it's not easy to develop a very sustainable token model. And I think it's really down to that, right? So some other Web3 games have like unsustainable inflationary token models, right? And users are playing the game just to extract and to earn rewards, right? So that is not sustainable for the long-term health of a ecosystem. So I would say it's really about designing tokenomics in such a way that, I mean, tokenomics and incentivization via tokens, I don't think is necessarily bad, right? And it's really about, you can think of it as a marketing cost in a sense that you give tokens to people to try to play the game. And what makes a user stick is really about the quality of the game itself. So I really think it's that. And I think the quality of the games that the Gomble team has built so far, alludes to that. That was the first question. Sorry, what was the second question again?
Sorry, I know I asked two relatively long questions back to back. So let me repeat the second question. And I think you almost answered a bunch of it within that first question. But essentially, the second question was, is there a playbook you've seen across your entire portfolio or even beyond your portfolio in Web3 gaming that Gomble is following? Or do you think that they're rewriting their own playbook for Web3 gaming success?
Yep. Yeah, good question. So I think in terms of like the playbook for Web3 gaming, I think the future of Web3 gaming will be such that Web2 users wouldn't know it's Web3. It would just be gaming with Web3 elements, right? And I think Gomble, the Gomble team is moving towards that direction to create a very seamless user experience. And I think that's really key to onboarding like the average Web2 gamer, right? You don't want your players just to be purely just focused on Web3. You just want to attract players across both the Web2 space as well as the Web3 space. And I think like easing the onboarding like really helps in that aspect. And yeah, so they implemented like social logins, like wallet creation and management, requiring like gasless transactions, so like people don't even know they're interacting with the chain. And I think all this adds to the ease of onboarding for an everyday user, and I think that's what they have done.
Amazing. And I completely agree with you. You know, where a lot of Web3 gaming right now is there's just way too many friction points. And, you know, when you're developing a game, every additional friction point ends up losing you users, ends up losing you retention. And so I completely agree with your point here, Lionel, where we need to abstract a lot of this out so that players can come in and enjoy the game for what the game is. And then if they find out about, you know, what rewards or what loops they can get involved in with crypto without knowing that it's crypto, that's the direction that we should be moving in. So absolutely love that. And I think, yeah, Gomble is going to be doing a lot of that moving into the future. Now, we wrapped up the first segment. We asked the VCs, the big brains here, a bunch of questions about what gives them conviction into making these investments. You know, what are some of the metrics that make sense when they're trying to make their decision? What I think a lot of people don't actually know is that VCs don't just have super deep pockets, right? Of course, they have super deep pockets, but a lot of the best VCs also come in and support actively, the same way that Spartan and IOSG are here on this space supporting Gomble Games. So, Lionel, I absolutely loved your last response. I want to ask just one more quick question. How involved have you been post-investment? Because one thing you mentioned is that you know that the Gomble team is moving in that direction. So I want to hear some examples of how you've been able to support the team beyond just deploying capital.
Yeah, I would say for the Gomble team, like the team has been all credit goes to them, right? Like we investors, like on the back end, we are just like supporting the teams in like as like a sounding board as and when like they they require our input on like certain matters, such as like the tokenomics side of things, or if they just want to bounce ideas off us, we provide that sounding board that they can readily call upon, right? Yeah, but all credit goes to the team. So I would say, yeah, it's really providing a sounding board, having like calls with the team just to understand their progress and how we can support them in the next milestones, be it whether it's like marketing support that they require. Yeah, so that's how we have worked with them. And yeah, in relation to as mentioned earlier, like we help to like led two of the rounds. So that's when we actually like came together to try to, because of our conviction, the team, we help them to put the round together, introduce them to other investors who share the same vision, right? So that's where we come in.
I love that. And Chris, I want to quickly flick over to you as well. And you don't need to drop any names. You don't need to mention any VCs. But what are some examples of the best support that you've seen from investors that made you realize that, you know, investors don't just support with capital, but they really support the growth and development of the project as well? Lionel brought a couple of really amazing points about how they have supported you guys. I want to hear a bit more about the network of investors that have supported Gomble as well.
Can I name the Spartan and iOS right here?
You can. If you want to, you can. Yes, they're right here. Let's do it.
Yeah, definitely. Like Spartan iOS has been with us like for a long time, and then has been very strong partner and strong provide with us a lot of support, strong support. Thank you again in this stage. And then also for the support part, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of like financial investors as well, but also there are a lot of strategic investors. So such as what we are getting a lot of support from is usually like product, like the project team. We're just more focusing on really building the project. So sometimes we're out of like, we're not catching all the trend, we're not catching all the, you know, region some trend, not trend, I mean like more like very secret source of some successful cases or something, or any booming like, you know, the mainnet or booming the project things we can collaborate with. So but the big VCs or very strategic VCs has a lot of networks, and then they're just focusing on searching for those kind of the project and then the market. So we're getting a lot of help in that perspective when we need to find the collaboration for some launches or some games or some marketing things. Always they're with us. So they're just introducing us to many projects and many very potential like, you know, partners. So those kind of things are something that we value our strategic investors. So definitely, I want to recommend these VCs to many other projects. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for that response, Chris. Now, moving over to Joey. Joey, in the last section, you talked a little bit about retention, and I want to ask you. I know that a lot of the space dismisses casual gaming as a low retention type of model, but what gives you the confidence in the long-term sustainability of Gomble's model?
Yeah, so I think there's two parts to think about it. Just in terms of strictly like casual games and retention, I think what we've been seeing a lot of progression into, especially also in the Web2 gaming space, is this idea of kind of coupling casual games with some sort of meta progression, right? Something that is bigger than the individual casual game itself, and gives like users some sort of incentive to play outside of that. And this is mostly due to the fact that when you're on like your phone, like these mini games or these casual games are competing with Instagram, TikTok, etc. for attention, essentially. And there's so much time in one user's day, so they want to have at least some sort of feeling that they've earned something or they've progressed in some way. And I think Gomble is kind of having this like network where you're able to have some sort of meta progression in this, like in the overall network, I think plays a really big part in that. And, you know, also in other ways, Gomble flips this idea of like this low retention model in Web3 casual gaming. With these sticky casual games, I think that for example, the egg drop case study kind of shows you that there's like this massive funnel conversion from Web2 native interfaces like Telegram and stuff like that into more crypto native onboarding. Another one would be like strong repeated engagement, especially among like non-crypto natives. And just in general, I think a lot of this can be also attributed to their approach to layering like social and team-based missions through like Gomble Squad, boosting retention. Because people don't come back just for like the rewards, they come back for like the squad, right? And adding that to like this multi-team strategy and creator tools, I feel like this kind of gives you that network density that can compound over time. That's what I've been seeing with Gomble games.
Oh, amazing, amazing. It's just been straight alpha right after alpha in terms of how a lot of the VCs are thinking when it comes to investments. I want to ask you a bit of a loaded question, Lionel, and feel free to not have to answer this if you don't think it's something that makes sense. But I want to ask, as investors, how do you evaluate success post TGE in a market that often reacts irrationally?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, so I would say in terms of like the TGE, like that shouldn't be the end of it, right? Like a lot of people work towards TGE as like the culmination of years of hard work, right? But actually that could just be the start of the next flywheel, the start of being able to use tokens across all your various games, being the start of being able to leverage these kinds of tokens incentives to bootstrap the ecosystem even further, by allowing people who have tokens to try out various games that are launched within your ecosystem. So I would say that's just the start, and like I would recommend or urge people to just look more into the fundamentals, right? Like post TGE, like is the team like still shipping, the speed in which they're shipping, the pipeline of games that are going to be launched, the quality of these games, the metrics that we have all been talking about, the retention metrics, the number of players of the games, and the economic side of things, right? Like how sustainable are the games that are being pushed out, in terms of like are they are they driving any revenues? So I would say I will look into all these metrics more significantly rather than the token price, right? Because like there are a lot of factors that affect a token's price, but ultimately the builders that build in the long term will have these fundamental metrics, and I think gradually the market will realize it, right? So focus on the fundamentals.
I love that, and I think that's why VCs. It's such a different mindset when it comes to a lot of retail investors within crypto, right? A lot of crypto users, they have a very short-term perspective and horizon on the success of a project, and their thoughts normally fluctuate very heavily when it comes to how well a project is doing and whether they're going to succeed or not based on one quick snapshot of where the token is. But there's so much more beyond that. And I think that's where VCs get it right. They take a look at what the fundamentals look like. They try to understand what's coming next in this roadmap of, say, a year, 2 years, 5 years, and so on. And I just do think that's the way that it should be. And I do think that the market is in... It's almost time where I think the market starts to mature and starts to adopt that type of mindset as well. Now, on the topic of markets, we've talked a lot about what it looks like pre-investment, and then we've talked about what it looks like on why VCs decide to invest in projects. We've also talked quite extensively on what happens after that investment happens. Now, let's move into a bit more of a conversation around the macro and market trends. And we can start here with you again, Lionel. Where would you say we are in the broader Web3 gaming cycle? Are we in a building phase? Are we on the edge of the next hype wave? You see so many projects on a daily basis. Where do you think we are?
Yeah, I would say we are like, there are a lot of quality builders that are still hard in the midst of building. And yeah, I would say we are in the building phase, but we are starting to reap some of the rewards of it, right? So back in the early days when there was a boom in Web3 gaming, a lot of builders raised rounds like during the boom. And they have been like heads down building across all these years. And right now we are looking at some of the results of it, right? We are seeing some of their projects like Gomble, and the traction that they have been getting. We are looking at like Gunzilla, Maple Story, just to name a couple that have been heads down building and are about to launch. Yeah, so I think, and once we have like a successful launch, I would say like then you will probably see like an increase in the hype in Web3 gaming again, right? Now markets have been a bit lower in terms of the Web3 gaming side, but I think we're on the cusp of like a new hit and the market's taking off.
I agree with you. I think things can change so quickly, almost seemingly overnight, with just one leader within the market. And I hope we do see that soon. We still have very high conviction in gaming, and I do think that gaming is going to be one of the best drivers to really bring users from Web 2 into using Web3 technology, whether they know it or not. So completely aligned with you there. Now, Joey, moving over to you. Off the back of that conversation, what are some of the trends and infrastructure developments that you guys are tracking most closely in gaming and the crypto space that might hint that we're moving towards this uptrend?
Yeah, so just a couple of things that we're looking at IOSG. One thing that I found recently is kind of this like identity layer for gamers. I feel like there's a lot of people that want to target gamers and gaming data specifically, and this identity layer really helps you kind of like attribute different contexts to these gamers. So whether it be for like ads or whether it be for some other completely random infrastructure use that doesn't even pertain to gaming, I think this is like a really powerful play, and a lot of just companies in general are looking at this space. Another kind of interesting play that we've been looking at is, as I said before, these like IP layers or these factory models where you're able to kind of have this like general IP of your games or of your brand as like the biggest marketing advantage, as like the biggest kind of retention mechanism, and create more of like an immersive experience around like people just entering the world rather than entering a single game, I think is really powerful. And another thing that helps with that is kind of abstracting away the Web3 side of things, as Lionel said before, right? So someone that we've seen recently do really well here is like Off the Grid from Gonzilla. I think instead of having Web 2 come to Web 3, it's a lot easier for us as Web 3 to just produce and ship great games and kind of approach Web 2 with it. I think that is going to be like the key to adopting a lot more Web 2 players. And I guess like there's always like very niche infrastructural plays that we can see. For example, we did a big investment to Shaga recently. They do cloud gaming using DeepIn. Another one that I've seen is like NRN agents with these like AI plays. I think there's always like really interesting niche things that are going on in gaming to help like other parts outside of Web 2 or Web 3 or gaming in general.
Man, guys, for everyone that's listening inside the audience, normally people like Joey and Lionel, they only give this type of alpha and information towards their investment portfolios, but you're getting all of this for free. So make sure you're writing notes, make sure you're letting your friends know that this broadcast is going on and that there's a lot of actionable insights to take out of this in terms of how you think about market trends, how you think about all of these ecosystems that are interconnected, how you think about IP and gaming. So much actionable insight, right? So make sure you guys are bringing your friends to this broadcast. We are going to wrap up relatively soon. But before that, I'm going to ask Lionel and Joey one last question before we move on to a little bit of a reflection from Chris. So Lionel, last question for you. How do you think gaming will serve as the driver for this next wave of crypto adoption, especially with a lot of what Joey has said, identity layers coming in, games that are creating, games that are shipping Web2 native types of games. How do you think Gomble plays into this wider narrative?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so I would say gaming is one of the easiest means for someone to actually experience what it's like to adopt Web3, right? Be it like when you're playing the game and you receive like NFT assets, right? People do not need to like know that these are actually assets, but they have the option to, right? Like after they are actually immersed in the game and they actually find the game fun, then they realize, oh, actually these are Web3 assets and these are potentially transferable, and this can be used in another game, right? So I think that is the key. Yeah, basically lowering the barrier to entry. That was what like Joey was also talking about, like just making the whole process like so seamless and so easy that people, because people outside Web3 sometimes they just think that it's very daunting, right? The fact that you have to like sign so many transactions and like all these transactions being irreversible and like you don't know what you're signing. Like if all this is extracted away, I think it will make the whole experience a lot more palatable. And yeah, and I would say like that's one of the key drivers, right, for crypto adoption, and that's why we have a consumer based fund that invests in a lot of games, largely because we believe that this is the way forward. And I think in crypto gaming in general, we also need to like leverage on like what exactly Web3 brings for crypto gaming. And I think as what like Joey was probably alluding to earlier also, is developing an ecosystem around the IP. And so for example, like if I have an NFT in a particular game, like the community can create games that utilize the same NFTs, right? And then it creates a very vibrant ecosystem and allows for a lot of cross marketing across the various Web3 games. And I think that's what Gomble is also doing, right? Creating that whole ecosystem in which they can cross-market, cross-pollinate their games with assets being able to be used across all the various games in that ecosystem and utilizing like social metrics to tie everything together. Yeah, so I think we should leverage on the strengths of Web3 gaming, but also make it a seamless process for Web2 gamers to bring on board. And yeah, I think that will drive the next wave for crypto adoption.
Absolutely agree with you. Lionel, I'm actually going to ask you one more question after I go to Joey, because I think it's going to be very relevant to what you just mentioned. But Joey, just quickly, token incentives are often blamed for short-term spikes and long-term churn. How do you think about token utility in the context of retention?
Yeah, I think this is really interesting and what a lot of like consumer products have been thinking about recently. So I guess like the ethos behind that would be, you have like these kind of incentives loaded up, people get airdrop tokens, and after that, now there's like an open market where people can speculate and dump on it, and these loyal retail users are going to be theoretically dumped on. But I think that's only if you kind of design the token in a way where you don't already have users and you're essentially trying to onboard a lot more people at like really rapid pace, just strictly off of the token alone. And I think the main contention here is that you can't really bribe users to stay, especially since I mentioned before, you're competing against these other apps on your phone or these other games on your computer. You essentially have to like have some reason to have like to onboard these users and retain the moat that you have as like a game or a gaming IP. So in a way, I guess it's more important how you design the reasons to stay rather than actually gaining the attention from the user. I think the best use case of tokens is to amplify behaviors that already have like a certain level of intrinsic stickiness, right? So this looks like kind of deflationary token models where you have well thought out like sinks and sources, and the evolving nature of like token utility is something that I've been seeing a lot recently. I think a good ecosystem introduces fresh utility as player behaviors mature, rather than just relying on the same staking pool from day one. But you do have to be careful not to tie it too closely to the core mechanism of the game. Otherwise, everything that you're using to essentially participate in the ecosystem or play the actual games themselves are, have like a potential financial risk. So I think it's like a really difficult balance to strike, and I think the Gomble team has something really amazing cooking up.
Amazing. I can see where your stance is when it comes to whether a project should launch their token or not. And it's essentially, well, if you already have users, it's more of a benefit, or trying to find that balance to keep them within the ecosystem rather than bribing them to stay in the ecosystem. So I love that response. Now, Lionel, for real now, last question. Do you think studios should even be launching tokens this early? And if so, what makes you think that Gomble is already ready to launch their token?
Yeah. So I mean, in the past, we have seen studios that launch tokens earlier, like way earlier before the game is launched, right? And then you see them having no utility for the token, and therefore like the interest in the project just fades over time. I think Gombo is in a different stage though, because like there's already a huge community of users or of gamers. They're already playing 3.5 million cumulative players across the various games. Launch Pool 3 had like 650k unique wallets. So this shows a very strong community that they have already created. And coupled with the whole pipeline of games that they are ready to launch post the token launch, right? I think the token will just act as a flywheel to catalyze the adoption of these games also. So given where they are at this stage, and given that like they're more in the casual genre compared to like the hardcore AAA games that some other projects are building. In the casual genre, like this token, the launch of the token can kick off a flywheel for the adoption. And I think like the tokenomics is crucial here, right? You don't want an inflationary token model, but the Gombo team has that settled. So I would say they're in a good place.
Amazing response. Now let's wrap this up now. We're now at the top of the hour, but just quickly, we've had so much conversation from Lionel and Joey, and we'd of course want to hear a bit more from you, Chris. It's been quite a long journey up until this point now. And I know that you've had huge experience coming from Web 2, now building in Web 3, and wanted to ask you, well, were there any big surprises building in Web 3 compared to back in Web 2?
I was talking muted, so sorry for that. Oh yeah, thank you so much for the question, and then answers from my investors. Like I learned a lot as well today. And then back to my question. This question, the most surprising difference has been how early and involved the community is in shaping our project, the trajectory from the beginning. But in Web 2, usually typically show up post-launch, once the product is polished and then marketing kicks in. But in Web3, your community often forms before your product even exists. So they're not just users. So we're thinking they are co-builders and co-founders, early critics and then evangelists, and in some cases, your first investors. So this fundamentally changes how you plan, build, and iterate and everything. So the feedback loop is faster, but also harsher as well. So much more transparent. So we need to be like ready and then we need to prepare a lot how to build the community and then make the product together with the community. That's the most important and biggest difference, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. The space is so community driven, and you need to listen to your community if you want to see success within Web3. So guys, we're going to wrap this up now. I think it's been an absolutely amazing conversation. Thank you again, Lionel and Joey, for joining us today. And then Chris, of course, as well. We've talked about what the investment lens looks like. We've talked about what happens beyond the capital. We've talked about some macro and market trends and some of the things that the Gomble team is doing well. But we're at the top of the hour now, so we do have to wrap this up. Would have definitely loved to extend this a little bit more. But any last words from any of the speakers before we do close this up?
No, not much, but thank you guys for having me, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do all this. Really excited to see what Gomble Games has cooking up.
Yeah, pleasure is ours for being here, and yeah, kudos to the team for shipping.
Amazing. And last words to you, Chris.
Thank you so much, Joy and Ryan and Bean. And then I'll go back to work.
Back to work straight away, Chris. The way it should be.
Thank you so much, guys.
Let's wrap this up. Thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.